Howdy, everybody. Wait for you to get on here. Hopefully, some of you guys are awake. Oh yeah, it's only 9:15. Well, if you're here with me, you'll know that this is not the normal night that I do shows. However, I've had some issues of late, and so I'm here. Been wrestling with some things all week. Some really high moments and some really low moments, but the roller coaster goes on. What's up, Rick? Good to see you, brother. I know it's a weird time for me to come on. Not normally on here on Tuesday nights, but we're going to talk a little bit about some interesting developments and some interesting twists and turns and this situation here. If you guys follow me on Facebook, you've probably seen the gory pictures. But I kind of want to talk to you guys tonight about the weekend that I had. Started off on Friday night in Revival. I don't know if you guys don't follow me on Facebook, go do that. Go look at Ian Chadwick on Facebook. We got a Sit Rep Resistance. We got a Facebook group, but my personal page, I'll accept your friend request, and maybe you can stay up to date on what's going on. I share a little bit more on there about what's going on in the city, what's going on with me, what I'm involved in. And this weekend we were involved in tent revivals, and we got it going on for 4 days this weekend. And I missed the last day due to an injury. But I'll tell you a little bit about what was going on because it was awesome. So it started with a dream of some local guys that we just felt like the Lord last year or the year before. It's like almost like 2020 doesn't exist, isn't it? It's like we all know it was there. It was bad for some of us. Some of us it was okay. It's just like the uneventful year where it was like pandemic is the word of the year and no one has any memories from it. So it's hilarious to me. It's just weird. It's one of those weird phenomenon things where you're just like, what happened in 2020? I don't really remember anything good happening except for it seemed to have gone really fast and the word quarantine comes to mind, but that's it. So it's super weird. But anyways, we had a vision for tent revivals. We all felt like God was saying, do the tent revivals again, bring them back. And none of us had tents and none of us knew what to do. And we didn't have any money. We're all like, nobody's got any money. So we just were praying. A bunch of people were praying and God gave some people some vision and some direction and some funding and just brought all the resources together, and we got some tents with no posts, but we ended up getting the posts for the tents, and our partners, Simple Street Ministry and Joel Burton, the guys down there, and then Risen Hope Church and Pastor Mike, who hopefully we'll get him on the show soon. He's an awesome dude. And they kind of just shoved it all together at the last minute. And we're like, you know what, let's just set a date and do it. I got a field. We'll put it in the field in the middle of this neighborhood. And we call that field the Field of Dreams. And we'll have the Field of Dreams tent revival to start this whole thing off. And I have to say it was definitely one of the highlights of this year so far. It was super fun. It was a blessing to be involved with it. We had, I'd say, close to 100 to 150 people out there every night, most of them unchurched. Lots of children, lots of kids running around the neighborhood, just kind of seeing what was going on. I mean, it was wild. We were setting up the band, setting up drums and stuff like that. And these kids are running up underneath the tent and they're like, oh, you about to play the drums? And we're like, no, we're not gonna play the drums till tomorrow. But they're like, oh man, they're telling everybody in the neighborhood they're about to play the drums tomorrow. And like, it was just crazy, and a lot of these kids didn't know much about the gospel, much about Jesus. We were all probably like, I'd say probably from 14 to maybe 6 or 7, somewhere in their area there. And they just ran around like crazy. And then the first night we had prayer and communion, and it was, it was super good. And the Holy Spirit came and we took communion, and the kids after the communion, we were just still setting up some stuff and getting everything ready to go for the next night, which was the kickoff night. And these kids are like, hey, can we have some juice? And they wanted the communion cups for juice, man. The little throwaway cups with the wafer on top. And we had to explain to them that you don't just drink those, they're for special. And we got to explain that whole process to them. And then we busted out the hot dogs over the fire. And it was cool because a lot of these kids I don't know if they were allowed to build a fire like we built a fire that night, but because they're in a neighborhood, I have no clue. But we built a fire, and we said, this is going to be a symbolic fire. This fire won't go out until this revival's done. We're going to keep it burning all night till this thing's done. And we did. And they had people staying all night to keep this fire going. It was cool. And they had hot dogs and things like that for the kids in the neighborhood. And man, it just drew them in, man. The music and the hot dogs. And it was cool to see. And there was no particular one ministry involved. It was a lot of different people from different ministries involved. And it just was like a conglomerate of Holy Ghost filled witnesses that wanted to go further than we go normally, and we wanted to be a light. The next day they went out into the city doing outreach and prayer and like kind of prayer walking and carrying crosses. Okay, carrying these big wooden crosses on their backs and drawing attention and praying for the people that showed up and along the streets and asking them and telling them about the thing that was going on, and in the rain, no less. And it was pretty cool. And then that night we had a awesome evening. The following day, on Sunday, Pastor Joel from Simple Street laid it down, man, crushed it. And I got some of the footage and stuff up on Facebook if you want to see that. But yeah, it was just a powerful weekend. And we had some deliverance that took place Sunday night, man. It was a powerful move of the Holy Ghost. I'm telling you, I go to a mixed denomination, like my church is got all kinds of culture in it, white, black, Hispanic, all kinds of different races. But our worship is majority, like I would describe it as like a Hillsong-y worship music, like just up, that kind of worship music, modern, upbeat, rock and roll type stuff. And the bands that they had at this thing, man, it was just a hodgepodge of whoever. But some of the churches that brought their stuff out, like one that moved me a lot was there's 4 black women on microphones and an old lady at the piano or the keyboard, and she had a drum machine, and that was it, man. She would start drumming on this machine, and it would keep that beat, and then she would just lay down synth rock like it was a grandma, bro, and it was good. It was just simple stuff. But these girls, man, they said we came to prophesy, and so they weren't songs as like sung at my church. I mean, but they were prophetic phrases, like you just say it, like my God is all powerful or whatever, and they would just kind of chant it over and over to this beat, like a hip hop song, and then they would just add in progressively more and more stuff. It was cool, man. The Holy Ghost fell on that place, and it ended up being a deliverance service. And we had everybody went through. We lined up. We had a prayer, kind of not a tunnel, but like somewhat of a tunnel, kind of. But people were everybody went through that thing, and God delivered some people, and it was a powerful time to be there, and it was super cool. The next night was going to be Saturday night, or Monday night. There was going to be baptisms. We had a lot of people come to this baptism thing, man. And I was super pumped up to be there. But on Monday afternoon, doing some work in my garage with my brother, our garage door broke off the track, but it was because of this. It's a very heavy garage door. It's like an old school metal, just massive, heavy door. These massive springs, big coiled springs that hold this thing up. And we had to reattach this spring because it had pulled a screw out, and like it pretty much fell because of that. So we put the screw back in and we had it all wrapped back up, but we had to pretty much get this spring stretched out so far, and it was by sheer force. And so I'm on a stool, and he's on a stool, and I've got a bar inside the part of this spring, and I'm just leaning my entire body weight on it, trying to stretch this spring far enough so that we can unhook this chain that we had on it. And man, I lost my balance, and I just let go and pushed my hands out like this, but I was up pretty good. And when I was falling down, my hand hooked a kind of like a metal, I don't even know what you call it. It's like a metal bracket or something on the side of this track. And it just tore from my palm all the way through my thumb, all the way, I'm talking deep. And I ended up having to get 30 stitches, 15 on the inside, 15 on the outside. As far as I know, by the grace of God, it didn't tear any ligaments, and I have full mobility and everything. It was just a wicked slice. I mean, there's pictures on there if you want to see it. I actually put one in the cover of this, which you can't see right now because we're live. But needless to say, I missed that night, and I spent it in the emergency room. And it was one of those moments where everything's fine, and you're just doing your thing, and you got plans, and you got all this stuff prepared for what's going on later, and then you have this accident, and you're like, immediately it's like everything's changed right now. I'm going to the emergency room, and I don't know when I'm coming home, and I don't know what's wrong. I have a humongous slice in my hand, and I can see my muscles hanging out, and I'm like just bleeding everywhere, and it was crazy. And so we went to the ER, and that was when the bad part started, because this is COVID ER still, guys. It's ridiculous. I didn't wear my mask in there because I said, I'm not wearing a mask. I'm literally bleeding a lot, and I'm not going to wear a mask. Then so I get in, we go to the urgent care, and they're like, first of all, there's nobody at the desk, which was incredibly annoying. We waited for this lady to come out. And she comes out. She says, "Can I help you?" I said, "Yeah, I have a massive laceration, and this bag over my hand is full of blood, and I need to have stitches right now." And she's like, "Oh, you're in the wrong spot." And then she's like, "You need to go to the emergency room." I'm like, "Well, where's that?" She's like, "It's on the other side." I'm like, "Okay, so I got to go around the building?" She's like, "Yes, there's construction, so you got to go around the building." I'm like, "Okay, this is ridiculous." And then another lady in the back's like, "No, you can walk him right through." She's like, "Oh, I can walk you through." So they open the door, and I just walk through to the ER, right? And I go in the back way, so I'm already in the ER area. And they say, "Right through this door." And they open the door after I talk to this lady inside the ER. I go through this other door, and I'm back out into some waiting room. There's no one even in the waiting room, just me. And I'm like, what the heck? I was just back there. Why do I got to go back out here? So then they're like, "We'll be right with you." And then they bring somebody else out And the dude's like, could you have a seat? We need to go through some of get you checked in and everything. I'm like, no, I'd rather not sit. I'm in a lot of pain. They're like, well, on a scale of 1 to 10, and then they're like 10 being the worst pain you've ever felt in your life. Now I'm like, okay, I've had a lot of injuries I've been in a lot of pain before. This is definitely painful, but it's not the worst pain I've ever had in my life. So why does that matter? You know what I mean? So I was just like, I'm on I would say 6. It's steady. It is very painful. And I can feel I have a tourniquet on my wrist right now, and I can feel that my hand is like numb, but it's pulsing. Like, oh, you shouldn't have a tourniquet. I'm like, I have an extremely large amount of blood, and they're like, well, let's take a look. It was like amateur hour, man. No offense. If you're part of this ER crew and you're watching this, which I doubt you are, but if you are, no offense, but my goodness, it's unbelievable. So anyways, I get in this room and it's me and my brother, and they didn't one time tell my brother that he couldn't go back there with me, which is insane because they're not letting like visitors into hospitals when you're like, when a woman's having a baby, they're not letting the husband in there because of COVID stuff, but they'll let my brother in there with me to get stitches. It's like, dude, his whole thing is whack. So anyways, I sat in this room for like an hour and a half before they even came in. The lady finally comes in and she looks at it and she's like, oh, well, we have soap. And I'm telling you, I put my hand in there. I had to push it face down. Like I had to press it, which opened the wound a lot. So if you don't know, like this is a better view. This muscle right here, it's a slice from here all the way across like this, and all of this muscle is hanging out. So this whole thing is like separated like that. And every time I move, you can see my muscles and stuff. And this is obviously inflamed. It was just ridiculous. And they had me spread my fingers out and push my hand flat down in this thing. And I'm like, oh God. And it had to be something besides soap and water because it burned like the devil's house or the devil's final destination, the lake of fire. That's what it burned like. It was insane. And so then I told him my pain level went up. I was like, okay, my pain level is now at like a 7. This is worse. And they're like, okay, it's fine. And then they finally brought me like a pill, and they gave me 1 Norco, which is like 1 Vicodin, which does 0. And they were pretty much waiting for my adrenaline to go down to do anything. And they didn't tell me that, but that's what it seemed like. Because I'm like, why are they not doing anything? It's like, I get that it's just stitches or whatever, but my goodness, why does it take so long? And we're probably looking at like 2.5 hours before they even really did anything, looked at it or anything like that. I mean, they did the x-rays, they looked at the x-rays, they cleaned it. Then the lady comes in and she's like, all right, this is going to be the worst part. And I'm like, well, now that my adrenaline's gone, thank you. Thank you so much. And they were pretty much going to give me the I forget what it's called, but the numbing, the needle with the numbing stuff, so they could do the dirty work. And let me tell you, that was definitely the worst thing. It was terrible pain. I had to hold my own arm down while they dug this needle into my wound. And I was like, I screamed the first time because it hurt so bad, and my arm jerked. And she's like, "You can't jerk. You have to stay completely still." And I'm like, "Listen, I don't think I can physically keep my arm down because I don't know what kind of thing you're doing here. It's like it was unbelievable." And so I just had to hold my own arm down and bear and grin it. But dude, it hurt so bad. It was unbelievable. It was the worst pain, worse than the entire night. It was just that part. Once it was finally numbed up, then she did the stitching and everything. And if you guys have ever had stitches, then you know what that's all about. But it's pretty insane. But needless to say, now this is my right hand. This is the hand that I use for everything. This is the hand I type with, I write with, I just do a lot of stuff with my right hand. And now I can't do anything with it. So I can't work because I do a physical labor job, and I'm going to be off for at least 2 weeks. And I'm hoping that I don't have to like see a hand specialist or anything like that, because as far as they could tell, I didn't have like ligament damage or anything like that. But I'm praying that I don't have to do that. But 14 days until my stitches come out, and then I can go back to work. But 14 days with no pay, because it's not a workman's comp issue, because I wasn't at work. And I don't know if I qualify for short-term disability yet, because they said that it takes 2 weeks to process. And I'll be pretty much back to work by then. So I don't even know what the point is. But, you know, this whole thing, it just really goes to, you know, this whole thing that God's doing. I know God is in control of this, and, you know, I can't say that this happened like because it was the enemy attacking me or anything like that. I mean, that's what we always want to say. We always want to say I'm being attacked by the enemy, and, you know, all that stuff. But because as far as I know, it's not a sin to fix your own garage door and try to save money, you know, but things happen, right? Detours come in your life, and how do you react to them? That's the measure of a man. How do you react to the detour, right? And guys, I'm trusting the Lord. And it's interesting because this weekend, you know, we talked a couple weeks ago, I mentioned on the sit rep of the week, we talked about David and being in the cave, right, of Adullam, and how Adullam means refuge. And at the beginning of this revival this weekend, Pastor Mike, he was kicking it off with our prayer night, and we were doing communion and stuff. And he said that the Lord told him this tent was the refuge for the city, and it begins today. And this tent, wherever it goes, will be the refuge for those that need it, right? And I thought that was super cool, because it immediately came up to, it brought me back to the dream and the word that the Lord gave me in 2018 or 2019, that Dayton, Ohio would be a city of refuge. And it has to start with a place, right, in the city. And Pastor Joel, somebody stood up at the meeting, the prayer night, and gave a dream that they had. And they said they saw a vision of Dayton so dark. It was like a darkness that you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. And in this vision, there was a tent, or there was a light coming from the center point of this city. And when you went further down from a higher vantage point, you could see that it was a tent, and it was the tent that we were in. And he said he could hear Pastor Joel preaching from under this tent, calling out. And he said as he went into the tent, he could just see Joel preaching and sticking his hand out into the darkness and bringing in one person at a time into this light that was in this tent. And so that was a really cool thing about, you know, bringing people into this place of refuge from the world. And I thought about David being in his tent, and on the second or third night, I had met so many cool people from a bunch of different ministry platforms and all different walks and everything, from different churches. It was insane. It was like a hodgepodge, man, of warriors from everywhere just showing up at this tent. And it reminded me of David. When David was in Adullam, the cave, it said that God, he went there, he ran there for refuge. And God brought the mighty men to the cave, to David, right? The men that were disgruntled with Saul's, decrees and the culture of the day, right? They were disgruntled. They broke off from Saul's leadership and went, and God led them to that cave, the refuge, where they were being trained up, right? From all parts of the city, all parts of the world at the time. But I mean, I thought about that, man. And I told Joel, I was like, bro, I feel like God's drawing the mighty men to this tent, because we're meeting. There's so many cool people here. There's so much stuff going on here, man. This is so awesome. And he's like, dude, I know. And right before before the day before we started this thing, it was like Thursday or something. I reached out to Joel and I said, "Hey, on Texas, and how you feeling, bro? What's going on?" He said, "I'm pressed on all sides," is what he said. "That's what I feel." And I was like, "Bro, I get it, man." But now, after this, like, just because now I'm in that tent revival, man, and I feel like I'm in the cave and I'm being drawn in like the mighty men, just drawn in, and to this refuge place where we're being just mentored and trained and gathered together, and we're forming this brotherhood for the greater things that lie in the future. And David leaves the cave and goes to Ziklag, and there's further stuff that happens there. That's when his family's kidnapped, and there's some stuff, a lot of bad stuff happened. But Ziklag means pressing. So it's like you leave that refuge point and you go immediately into further pressing. But that's also the place where he received the crown. That's the place where he was when Saul was killed, and the crown fell to David. Was in that place of pressing. And I just feel like God's impressing that upon me right now, because, man, I really feel pressed. I got a lot on my plate. I got a lot of direction from the Lord, but some of it seems unattainable at the moment. And I'm just, well, I have hope, and I don't get discouraged easily. But, man, I'm there. I could really use a lot of your guys' prayers. Some of you guys have reached out already and told me that you're praying for us and you're thinking about us, and that's awesome. And we haven't given up hope. We know that the Lord has a plan in this detour, man, and I don't know what it is, nor did I wish this upon myself, or you know how it is. But, for the time being, one of the prayers that I've been praying recently for the last couple of months is I want to be full-time. Make a way for me to be full-time ministry, Lord. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what it's supposed to look like. But for the next 2 weeks, apparently I'm full-time ministry. So I've got nothing else to do. Nothing in my way. The other thing was, I kept telling the Lord, I want to fast. I feel like you're calling me to fast for some breakthrough and some serious stuff, but I really can't fast right now because I can't do the physical labor on no food. I can't do it. I won't be able to handle it. So look, now I've got no job. Now I can fast. Now I can press in. Now I can do full time with no hindrances, It's just a scary place to be because I'm not in control. And so, yeah. Could use your prayers and your words of encouragement. On a high note, my stitches are good. My hand's not hurting that much. I mean, it's achy for sure. I'm having to learn a lot of stuff with my left hand, which is unfortunately annoying, but at least I can do it. And I've been spending a lot of time with my kids today, and they really enjoyed that. And I just want to offer it up to you guys. If you need any prayer, any counseling, or anything like that, I'm going to be completely available for the most part. Maybe there's a couple hours of the day that I can't do anything, but for the most part, I am completely available to chat, to encourage, to pray with, to do some deliverance. If you want healing or deliverance, maybe do some, I don't know, some inner healing stuff, some coaching, whatever you guys need, I am here. And so you can just reach out. My email is ianchadrick@gmail.com. You can also connect to the website, sitrepresistance.com. And there's some new merchandise shirts up there. I put the Freedom Fighter shirt is up there. It's the one I'm wearing right now. It's legit. It's comfy, it's soft, and you can buy those, or you can get other merchandise on there too. You can look at resources. We have some films. I mean, if you're feeling pressed in your marriage, I know there's lots of areas where you can feel pressed. Finances, marriage, your kids, your work, whatever the situation is. I want you to know that there's hope, and God does not forget, does not lose, will not lose you in that problem. He's always going to have his hand out for you. He always makes a way for you to escape, right? And so we just got to, sometimes I feel like the Lord's telling me, for me, sometimes he has to stall you out because your momentum is going so good. He needs to stall you out so that you'll pay attention, because you might be getting a little bit ahead of the map or ahead of what he's doing. And he's just like, I'm going to stall him out for a second, recalibrate, and then go back at it. So I'm kind of in that detour, that little stall, I guess. And I'm not discouraged by merely anything more than just the fact that I'm like in zero control of my own life right now, and my own sustainability and resources. But you know what? God has never let us down. In the last 8 years, we've been at this place many times. So the battle is in the mind, folks. And if you can get that in check, you get your mind in check. It's okay to vent. It's okay to do that stuff, but keep on track. Don't let the enemy win in your mind, or you've already lost. And so my mind is set. I'm doing the things that I need to do. I'm going after it. I'm not going to worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow's not even promised. Just going to love on my family and love on you guys. If you guys need prayer, like I said, just reach out to me. If you're not friends on Facebook, you can be. Just go find me Ian Chadwick on Facebook, and you can look up Sit Rep Resistance TV, and I think you can find some stuff there on Facebook as well, or all of our links and stuff. There's also some awesome films. If you go to the website, Sit Rep Resistance, down at the bottom, right underneath the donate button, you'll see links to our Facebook. There's BitChute. There's 2 different YouTube channels. The one's the backup channel, and then there's another one that looks like a chain link. That one one of them goes to Odyssey, one of them goes to BitChute. And Odyssey has 3 documentary films on there that are banned from YouTube. And one is Quantum Illusion. One is the MK Ultra documentary. And the other one is The Mystery of Iniquity, The Reality Distortion Effect, episode 14. And all those are banned. So you can find them on Odyssey. Some of you guys have hit me up trying to find links to those. You can find them on the website. So go check that out. If you click resources, you can find the film that we did on marriage called Covenant Warfare. And that's an awesome resource for you to have. I think everybody should see that, whether you're married or you're looking to get married or you've been married or whatever your situation is. Understanding the covenant of marriage and how that is the number one target for the enemy, and why God is so concerned with the marriage covenant and the bride, and how that relates to us, and why the enemy is going after that in the family so much. It's a really good film. And also, you can get the Spiritual Warfare Prayer Manual, which has got a whole bunch of stuff in it. It's got stuff on Mission 242 and the operation of the underground house church movement. And it's got, your roadmap to deliverance and some things about inner healing, some declaration statements. It's got a battle cry that's in there that you can read through and prepare for your day. And lots of cool stuff in there. Free to download that. I love having you guys in here on an off day. It's kind of cool. I haven't really been paying attention to the chat, but I see you guys. I see The Sharps in there, Rick Swain. I see Arc Builders and JJ Youngblood. What's up, buddy? And Padre O'Hays. So I'm sure there's more people on there, but it's kind of a weird timing, and I just wanted to get this out, share it, get you guys praying. And like I said, if you know anybody that needs prayer or needs an encounter with the Holy Spirit, I'm available all week, and I am more than happy to pray with whoever needs it. We can do Zoom, we can do phone, we can do whatever. So I don't want to make this any longer because I've already rambled for 35 minutes, but just so you guys know, you can find ways to get hold of us on the website. So also the podcast is up to date now. The last couple weeks we got a little off track, but it's all up to date. And Fighting Giants is now up and live. It's on the website. That's the last website or last show. I'm hoping to have lots of guests on in the next couple weeks because I met a bunch of cool people at this revival tent. So I'm hoping that tomorrow night we get one of those guests on. Trying to get a hold of them, and then we've got some other people lined up. We're just waiting on them to clear their schedules for us, and it's going to be the next couple months are going to be awesome. So love you guys, and keep me in your prayers, and I'll keep you guys in mind, and I'll see you tomorrow night for the sit rep with Aaron. But shalom and God bless you guys.